For years, my mom kept me drugged, not with medicine, but with something meant for animals, just to keep me weak, quiet, and dependent. Eventually, I found the strength to leave and cut her out of my life completely. A year later, she sent me a letter, full of tears and apologies, claiming it was all done out of love and begging to see me again. Growing up, going to school felt less like education and more like walking through a minefield of illnesses. Many families couldn't afford lunch, so even when kids were clearly sick, they still showed up. One day, a girl coughed on me, and I didn't wash my hands afterward. I had no idea that one tiny choice would turn my entire life upside down. Within days, a mild sore throat became something much worse. I could barely breathe, couldn't stand up without blacking out. And the same parents who once told me to just eat more at school instead of buying me dinner suddenly emptied every cent into keeping me alive. The situation was so bad, we had to ask neighbors for help. And to my shock, people responded. Money, hospital visits, even toys and books I'd never had as a child started showing up by my hospital bed. I hate to admit it, but some part of me almost didn't want to get better. I'd never seen this kind of love before. But I didn't recover. Not fully. What came next was worse. Constant dizziness, no strength, and eventually, a heartbreaking diagnosis. I wouldn't be able to walk again. I told myself I'd adjust, stay positive. But then I came home to find my parents packing up everything I owned. "We're moving," they said, like it was no big deal. "We deserve a fresh start after everything you've put us through." Stunned, I just nodded. Days later, we were in a van moving from LA to Salt Lake City, with me in a wheelchair and no clue what came next. Turns out they had it all planned. Using the donations people gave during my illness, they enrolled me in a private school. On my first day, everyone acted like I was some sort of hero. My parents had already told everyone what happened. At first, the attention felt nice. But by day 3, I was tired of telling the same story. I didn't want to be inspiring. I wanted to disappear. Later that week, I broke down in front of my mom. "Things are really hard," I said quietly. Her response? "You don't even know what hard is." She shouted so loud I thought a vein in her forehead might burst. I rolled myself to my room and cried until I couldn't anymore. After that, I faked being fine, smiled when I wasn't, thanked her for everything like I was lucky this happened. I even made sure to wear cheerful clothes for the photos they posted online, so I'd look like the daughter they could be proud of, not the one who ruined their life. And it worked. They smiled more, hugged longer, like my silence was the price of their happiness. Then one morning while they were out, I dropped one of my pills into the toilet by accident. I panicked and wheeled myself all the way to the pharmacy to get a refill. The pharmacist stared at the bottle and said, "This isn't for humans. This is a sedative used for animals, mostly dogs or horses." I froze. My heart dropped. "Can you just refill it anyway?" I whispered, hoping she was wrong. Back home, I kept pretending. Took the pill, or acted like I did, then spit it into my pillow the moment my mom left the room. And deep down, I started to wonder, what else had I never questioned? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, a quiet alarm in the back of my mind that never shut off. And then, 2 weeks after I stopped taking the pills, it happened. I stood up. For the first time in years, I rose from that wheelchair on my own. Not because of some miracle recovery, not because pneumonia had stolen my ability to walk, but because I had never lost it. All those years, it had never been the illness. It was them, my own parents, the medications, the way they always insisted on handling everything, the donations, the sympathy, the carefully curated story they told everyone. It all started to make sense, in the worst possible way. Now I'm living a double life. Every day when they're gone, I practice walking in secret. My legs are shaky, my balance is awful, and I look like a baby deer trying to take its first steps. But I'm getting stronger, bit by bit. I use the walls, furniture, anything I can grab to steady myself. Yesterday, I made it all the way from my bedroom to the living room without holding on to a single thing. 15 steps. It felt like climbing a mountain. But when my parents come home, I have to pretend like nothing's changed. I have to slump in my chair just right, let my feet drag, act exhausted after every small movement. I have to keep the act going, even when it hurts more than the walking ever did. I started digging into what ace-promisine actually is. I had to delete my search history every time, just in case. Turns out it's not meant for people at all. It's used to sedate animals, large ones. In humans, it causes weakness, dizziness, low blood pressure, And it all fades when the substance leaves your system. No wonder I was so out of it all the time. They weren't helping me. They were keeping me sick. The hardest part now is managing the pills. My mom watches me take them, morning and night. I've learned how to hide them under my tongue and spit them out later. But I knew she'd eventually notice the supply wasn't going down fast enough. So, I made a plan. I told them I had a study session with a classmate and took the bus to a natural health store across town. The bus driver helped with the wheelchair ramp, which hurt my pride, but kept up the illusion. At the store, I bought vitamin B tablets that looked almost identical to the original pills. When I got home, I carefully swapped half the contents in the bottle. If she counts them, the numbers will still line up. It's not perfect, but it's buying me time. Then last night, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. I wasn't supposed to be awake, but I'd gotten up to practice walking. I heard my parents in the kitchen whispering. My dad said something about the fundraiser next month, how their church group had promised to match up to $5,000. My mom added, and with the video we're making about her journey, we could double what we raised last year. That's when my dad said, people give more when they see the struggle. And my mom replied, don't worry, I'll make sure she takes her meds. She's been a little more alert. I might need to adjust the dose. I had to cover my mouth to keep from making a sound. They weren't just lying. They were planning to use me again, showcase my struggle for sympathy. And she'd noticed I was more aware lately, which meant she might start giving me more of it. I laid in bed, heart racing. I needed help. But who could I trust? Most of my friends from before were gone. The kids at school only knew the version of me my parents had constructed. Teachers all saw them as heroes for caring for their disabled daughter. Then I thought of Aunt Sharon. She lived in Denver, about 8 hours away. We weren't super close, but she'd always been kind. She actually sent cards on my birthday, not just with messages, but with cash. And when I was hospitalized, she visited, more than once. She never treated me like a burden, just like a person. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I waited until both of my parents had left for work. Dad had just started a new job at an insurance company, and Mom was doing part-time shifts at a boutique downtown. The second the door closed behind them, I stood up from my wheelchair and practiced walking again. My legs were still weak, but I was getting better, stronger. Then I went searching for my mom's old address book. I found Aunt Sharon's number and stared at it for a long time before dialing. My hands were shaking. What if she didn't believe me? What if she told my parents? But when she picked up, her voice sounded just like I remembered. Aunt Sharon? It's Zoe! Zoe? Sweetheart, what a surprise! How are you? I took a deep breath. Not good. I need your help. I can't explain everything now, but my parents have been drugging me, making me believe I couldn't walk. They've been using me to get money. There was a long pause. Then she said softly, I always wondered. Things just never added up. Your sudden condition after being sick, the endless fundraisers, how they moved you away from everyone who knew you before. I burst into tears. She believed me. We talked for nearly an hour. She wanted to go to the police immediately, but I convinced her that would only make things worse. I didn't have enough proof yet. She promised to help me come up with a plan and said she'd visit in 2 weeks, under the pretense of a business trip. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't alone. But that relief didn't last. That same afternoon, Mom came home early and noticed something I'd missed. Faint, wet footprints on the bathroom floor. I'd forgotten to wipe them away after stepping out of the shower. What's this? She asked, pointing. My heart sank. Oh, probably from when I was trying to reach something on the counter this morning, I said quickly. I kind of stood for a second. I didn't mean to. It just happened. Her eyes locked on mine. You know you're not supposed to try standing. You could hurt yourself. I know. I'm sorry. Have you been taking your medication properly? Of course, I lied. She stared at me. You seem different lately. More alert. I've been sleeping better, I said. And the upper body therapy at school helps. She didn't look convinced. That night, she stood right beside me while I took my pill. I pretended to swallow, even made a little face like it tasted bad. Then suddenly, open your mouth. My heart stopped, but I'd already hidden the pill under my tongue. I opened wide, lifted my tongue. Nothing there. She nodded and left. As soon as she was gone, I spit the pill into a tissue and flushed it. That was too close. She was getting suspicious. The next day, things escalated. I came home to find new locks on the medicine cabinet, A few days later, I spotted a small camera installed in the living room, aimed directly at the couch and the wheelchair. They were watching me now. I texted Aunt Sharon using a burner phone she'd sent hidden inside a stuffed animal. My parents had opened the care package but hadn't noticed the phone tucked inside the toy. "They're installing cameras," I texted. "This is getting serious," she replied. "We need to move faster." We agreed she would visit in 2 weeks, pretending it was for work. In the meantime, I started collecting proof. I took photos of my medication bottle, clearly showing the label, "Acene." I found a few receipts in my dad's desk and photographed those too. I even recorded a video of myself walking across my room while holding up my phone to show the date. But every day, my parents tightened their grip. My mom began insisting on being in the bathroom with me for safety. My dad added more cameras, but including one aimed at the hallway outside my bedroom. They were closing in. Then came the night that changed everything. I was in my room, pretending to do homework while secretly texting Aunt Sharon. That's when I heard raised voices downstairs. At first, I couldn't make out the words, but they got louder. "She knows something," my mom snapped. "I can tell." And just like that, everything I feared was confirmed. They knew. My dad's voice was low, urgent. "We need to increase her dosage. She's been acting different." "More alert," my mom agreed, trying to whisper but still loud enough for me to hear. "What if she figures it out?" "If we give her too much, it could be dangerous," my dad replied. "We need her functioning for the fundraiser," my mom snapped back. "We need her compliant. If she starts asking questions, everything we've built could fall apart." Their voices dropped after that. I couldn't hear the rest, but I didn't need to. I'd already heard enough. They were planning to sedate me even more. The next morning, Mom brought me orange juice with my medication. It looked different, slightly cloudy. I pretended to sip, but when she turned to answer a call, I dumped most of it into a nearby potted plant. As soon as she left, I poured the rest down the sink. She was crushing the pills into my drinks. That afternoon, Aunt Sharon texted, "Change of plans." She wasn't waiting 2 weeks. She was coming this weekend. She booked a hotel near our neighborhood and rented a car. We were going to get me out, but it seemed my parents were already suspicious. That night, they sat me down. Dad paced. Mom watched me with a carefully rehearsed look of concern. "Zoe, we're worried about you," she said gently. "You've been distant." "I don't know what you mean," I replied, trying to stay calm. "We think you might be skipping your medication," my dad added bluntly. "That would explain why you've been acting so different." "I take it every day," I said. "You watch me." Mom leaned forward. "Then how do you explain this?" She held up her phone. Security footage. It showed me walking from my room to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I'd forgotten about the hallway camera. My heart dropped. I can explain." "We're very disappointed, Zoe," Dad said coldly. "After everything we've done for you." "Everything you've done for me?" I couldn't stop myself. "You've been drugging me, making me believe I couldn't walk." They exchanged a look. Unreadable, unnerving. "You're confused, sweetheart," Mom said in a syrupy voice. "The medication helps you manage your condition. Without it, you feel better, but it's an illusion. You'll end up hurting yourself." "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "It's not even real medication. It's a tranquilizer for animals." My dad's face darkened. "This is exactly why you need it. You're becoming paranoid." What happened next felt like a blur. I tried to stand to prove them wrong. My dad shoved me back down. My mom rushed off to get a stronger dose. I screamed that I wasn't going to take it. We struggled. I fell, hitting my head on the edge of the coffee table. When I came to, I was back in my bed, groggy, disoriented, and restrained. There were actual restraints on my wrists and ankles. My door was locked from the outside. For 3 days, they kept me like that. My mom came in to feed me, to help me use a bedpan, to give me medication, checking under my tongue and inside my cheeks to make sure I swallowed. My dad installed a lock on the window and removed anything I might use to escape or call for help. On the 3rd day, my mom walked in, trying to sound casual. "Your Aunt Sharon called," she said, eyes scanning my face. "She's in town for a work conference and asked to stop by. I told her you weren't feeling well, that you'd had a little fall and needed to rest." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. Inside, I was panicking. Aunt Sharon was my one chance, and they were keeping her away. That night, after Mom gave me my medication, I faked falling into a deep sleep. I managed to hide the pill again, I was getting better at it. Once she left, I worked on the restraints. They'd been getting lazy, assuming I was broken. It took hours, but I finally freed one hand. With that, I untied the rest. I crept to the door. It was locked, of course, but not a complicated lock, the kind with a hole in the center. I pulled out a straightened paperclip I'd hidden in my pillowcase, something I'd prepared days ago, and picked the lock, just like I'd learned from those late-night school laptop tutorials. The house was dark, silent, past midnight. They were asleep. I slipped into the hallway then and moved toward their room. I crept to their bedroom door and slowly opened it a crack. They were asleep. My dad was snoring quietly. Right there on the nightstand was my medication bottle. I slipped inside, grabbed it, and took his phone too. Then I went straight to his home office and pulled out the folder labeled Zoe's Medical, the one they always kept locked away. Inside was everything. Fake reports, donation logs, doctor names I'd never even met. I took photos of every single page using his phone, then texted it all to Aunt Sharon along with one message. Help. Escaped, but need pickup. They drugged me. They tied me down! I barely hit send before the lights came on. My mom stood in the doorway, eyes burning. What do you think you're doing? She hissed. I backed away, clutching the phone and the bottle. Exposing you, I said, my voice trembling but firm. It's over. I know the truth. And now so does someone else. She lunged at me, but years of using my arms to push a wheelchair had made me stronger than she realized. I shoved past her and ran. Actually ran. My legs wobbled, but they held. Behind me, I heard her screaming for my dad. I burst out the front door just as headlights turned the corner. Aunt Sharon's car screeched to a stop and she jumped out, panic all over her face. Zoe, oh my God! I collapsed into her arms, shaking. My parents came charging outside. She's having an episode, my mom yelled, loud enough for the neighbors. She needs her medication. But Aunt Sharon wasn't backing down. I've already called the police, she said, her voice loud and clear, and I have evidence of everything. My dad froze when he saw his phone in my hand. He must have realized what I'd sent. What happened next was chaos, flashing lights, questions, arguments. My parents tried to convince the officers that I was unstable, that none of this was real, but the truth was impossible to deny. The tranquilizers, prescribed for an animal we didn't own, the restraints on my bed, the videos of me walking, the donation records showing over $200,000 raised over the years, all based on a lie. They were arrested that night. I went with Aunt Sharon to her hotel. Neither of us could sleep. We sat up until dawn, trying to make sense of it all. I always knew something felt off, she admitted. Your mom's stories never made medical sense. I tried to say something once, but she shut me down, said I was jealous of her sacrifice. After that, she limited how often I could see you. So I just tried to stay in your life, even if it was just birthday cards. I nodded. It all made sense now. They'd isolated me from anyone who might question their version of events. In the following weeks, everything changed. Medical tests confirmed I had no condition, just muscle weakness from years of disuse and the lingering effects of the medication. With therapy, I was gaining strength fast. Investigators uncovered even more than we expected. Charges were filed for abuse, fraud, unlawful confinement, and more. Their trial is still pending, but the prosecution has enough for a plea deal. Either way, they're not walking away from this. Aunt Sharon was granted emergency guardianship. I moved to Denver with her. New city, new school, new life. The hardest part hasn't been physical recovery. It's the emotional scars, the trust issues, the nightmares. Sometimes I still reach for a wheelchair that's no longer there, a ghost of the past. It's been 3 months since I got out. Aunt Sharon's apartment isn't big, but it's filled with sunlight, the complete opposite of the dark house I used to live in. She turned her home office into a bedroom just for me and painted it teal, my favorite color. Physical therapy is no joke. My therapist, Kevin, pushes me like a coach training an athlete. But it's working. I can now walk half a mile without stopping. Doesn't sound like much, but it's everything to me. Starting school again was rough. Being the new girl is hard. Being the girl whose parents kept her in a wheelchair for money, even harder. News travels fast, especially when your case makes the local paper. On my second day, a classmate asked, "Wait, are you that wheelchair girl?" I just smiled. Not anymore, then walked away. Aunt Sharon encouraged me to join clubs. I signed up for the school newspaper. Turns out I'm pretty good at writing, maybe because I spent so long watching the world from the sidelines. Miss Patel, the newspaper advisor, said I have a perspective most people don't. I'm currently working on an article about accessibility in public spaces. Ironic, I know. Last week I had to testify at a hearing. It was just me, the prosecutor, the court reporter, and my parents' lawyers. Sharon waited outside. They tried to twist my words, make it sound like I was confused, like maybe my parents had meant well. But I stayed strong. Because this time, I knew the truth, and I wasn't going back. I didn't break. No matter what their lawyers tried to twist or spin, I just kept telling the truth. Over and over again. After the hearing, the prosecutor, Christine, this absolute powerhouse of a woman, pulled me aside and said I did great. My parents are still in jail, waiting for trial. They couldn't make bail. All their assets were frozen as part of the fraud investigation. I haven't seen them since the night they were arrested. Part of me wants to ask why. Why would they do this to their own daughter? The other part never wants to see them again. My therapist, yeah, I have one now, says both feelings are valid. That I don't have to decide yet. That healing isn't about making sense of what others did, but about reclaiming my own story. The hardest part has been the nightmares. I keep dreaming I'm back in that house, tied to that bed. My mom is standing over me with a syringe. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. I always wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing. Aunt Sharon got me a weighted blanket. It helps. So does knowing she's just in the next room. She never complains when I wake her at 3 a.m., even if she has to be at work by 6. She just makes tea and sits with me until I can breathe again. She's been incredible. Turns out she always suspected something was wrong. She told me that she and my mom used to be close until my mom met my dad. He was always intense, controlling. My mom changed after they got together, became secretive, obsessed with appearances, and eventually obsessed with money. Still, nothing could have prepared her, or anyone, and for what the police found. It was so much worse than we thought. Apparently, my parents had started planning this long before I ever got sick. They'd researched rare medical conditions, joined support groups, even talked to a lawyer about setting up a special needs trust. All before my so-called disability ever existed. Pneumonia was just their opportunity. They found journals, pages and pages of my mom's handwriting, tracking donations from fundraisers, listing which social media posts got the most sympathy, brainstorming future medical emergencies they could fabricate. They even noted which photos of me brought in the most money. It wasn't just fraud. It was a blueprint. Last month, the prosecutor offered plea deals. My dad accepted right away. 15 years for child endangerment, fraud, and false imprisonment. My mom resisted. Claimed she did what she had to do for our family. But when her lawyer showed her those journals, her own words, she caved. Took the deal. 18 years. It still has to be finalized by a judge, but Christine says it's basically done. And me? I'm rebuilding. Piece by piece. I have my own phone now. No tracking apps, no surveillance. I even opened my first bank account. Most of my parents' assets are frozen. But there was a small fund in my name, supposedly for college. The judge ruled I could keep it. It's not much, but it's mine. Social media has been strange. A few kids from my old school messaged me. Said they always thought something seemed off. Easier to say now, I guess. A couple of reporters tried to reach out too, but Aunt Sharon shut that down immediately. She's protective, but in a good way, not the controlling kind I grew up with. Honestly, the physical recovery has been the easiest part. Once I stopped taking the tranquilizers, my body bounced back fast. The doctors said I'm lucky. No lasting organ damage, no major complications. Just years of strength I'd never been allowed to build. Finally coming to the surface. I'm walking, I'm writing, I'm finally living. And for the first time in forever, I'm free. Doctors told me that long-term use of ace-promycin in humans can lead to serious complications. Liver issues, among other things. At first, my tests showed some elevated levels, but thankfully everything's back to normal now. The mental part, though, that's a different story. Sometimes I still reach for a wheelchair that isn't there. I catch myself asking permission to grab a snack or go to the bathroom. It's like my body still remembers being under constant control. My therapist, Catherine, says that's common for people who've lived in restrictive environments. She calls it institutional behavior, the kind you see in people who've spent years in a system that taught them not to think for themselves. Which, honestly, that's exactly what it was. Last week, something unexpected happened. I got a letter from my mom. Aunt Sharon almost didn't give it to me, but Catherine thought it might help if I was ready. I read it. In it, my mom tried to explain everything. She claimed it all started after my hospital bills from the pneumonia, that they were desperate, that they saw an opportunity to give me a better life, that they always meant to stop the medication eventually once they'd saved enough money. She said she loved me. She asked for forgiveness. I read it once, then tore it up and threw it away. Maybe someday I'll want to hear her side, but not today. Right now, I'm choosing to focus on moving forward. Yesterday, I went for a run. Like, a real run, just around the block, and I sounded like a wheezing pug by the end of it. But I ran. Kevin, my physical therapist, was so hyped when I told him. He's added cardio to my plan. The new goal? Run a 5K by the end of the year. It feels possible. I've started making friends too. A girl named Lauren from the school newspaper invited me to sit with her crew at lunch. They're all journalism nerds who believe words can change the world. A little corny, yeah, but honestly, I love it. They don't treat me like I'm fragile or broken. They just see me. Aunt Sharon and I have our own tradition now. Every Friday night, we pick a new restaurant to try. Denver's food scene is way better than what I grew up with. Or at least, better than the tiny corner of it I was allowed to see. Last week, we had Ethiopian food. I had no clue what to do with that spongy bread, but it was delicious. The court case is still ongoing. My part in it is mostly done, though. There'll be a sentencing hearing eventually. And I can give a victim impact statement if I want. Catherine's helping me write one. I'm not sure I'll be able to say it out loud in court, though. Just the thought of seeing them again makes my stomach twist. Some days are better than others. I still get angry. Like rage angry, when I think about all the normal things they stole from me. First dates, school dances, just being a regular teen. They turned me into a symbol. A story, not a person. I'm trying to catch up now, but it's not always easy. Still, last night I had a dream. And for once, it wasn't a nightmare. I was running through an open field. The sun was warm on my skin. The wind was in my hair. I was running just because I could. I woke up smiling. It felt like something shifted. I've even started looking ahead, thinking about college, journalism programs. Turns out I actually love writing. Aunt Sharon says I can stay with her as long as I want, even after I turn 18 next year. It's nice to have choices, to be in control of my own life. Sometimes I still catch myself looking over my shoulder, half expecting my parents to be there, ready to force me back into that chair. Catherine says that fear will fade with time. I hope she's right. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time, learning to trust people again, learning to trust myself, and walking, literally and figuratively, on my own 2 feet. It's not easy, but nothing worth doing ever is. Yesterday I walked 2 miles without stopping. Today I'm aiming for 2.5. Small steps forward. But they're mine.